Hey, good morning, everybody. It's James from Life Transitions. We mentioned we're going to go live this morning. We've had a pile of questions about cremation options and ideas and whatnot. So we figured Facebook Live is always a great way to connect with you folks. I'm not sure where you are. Maybe you're at work. Maybe you're at home. Maybe it's a snow day. It's kind of a bizarre. There's no school buses, so maybe you're at home with a bunch of kids, and you're just wasting some time on Facebook. That's good. That's good at times. So, question about cremation. In Ontario, you've got two options after someone passes away. You've got burial or you've got cremation. That's it. Those are our two main options. Cremation is certainly much more prevalent than burial. We're approximately 75% cremation rate in Ontario, meaning of 100 deceased people, 75 of them are choosing cremation. First time in history of the U.S. last year, 2016, the U.S. cremation rate overtook the burial rate. First time in history. Will likely never go back. We surpassed that in Canada many, many years ago. So cremation is very prevalent. So because of that, funeral companies such as ourselves want to be able to show people or give people different options. Now, with cremation, this wouldn't be possible. This very unique item right here. We showed this on Facebook over Christmas, and Facebook just lit up. It's cremated remains that have been impregnated into molten glass, and of course it's not molten anymore, and it turns into a paperweight or a keepsake. It comes in different sizes, different colors, but we recognize that for some people this is the most unique, meaningful thing, and for others possibly the most grotesque thing you've ever seen in your life, because we're all so different. We have different contact points, and because of cremation, these different options they're available to us today. There we're getting a close-up here. That's very unique. You can easily say that there's one of these on the planet because of the contents there. Other things that are very common, we very commonly would take a person's fingerprint, and a fingerprint could be CNC'd onto a piece of crystal, onto a piece of jewelry, onto a locket, again creating a very unique keepsake, a memorial. And there are so many options that certainly to show you a few of them is literally all we can really do, is show you a few options. Some people see the value in having some cremated remains with them in the form of jewelry, of having the contents of jewelry, having cremated remains inside. Here we've got some very common shapes and sizes and styles of jewelry that's designed to house cremated remains. You would keep them, they would be sealed. And again, it's interesting that some people would find that the most meaningful thing, and someone else would just be repulsed by that. So again, we have no agenda to change anyone's mind. People see the value in certain things, and will run very quickly away from other things. But cremation jewelry certainly is a common thing. It's nothing we've invented. We've certainly, as a funeral company, we want to just be able to tell people and show people and let people make their decisions. That's if you see in the bottom area here, we partnered with a company called Eternity's Touch, where the taking of the fingerprint. We got a phone call going on here. There we go. Leanne is going to get the phone here. This is all a jostly here. Fingerprint jewelry it kind of emerged a few years ago, and again it creates this very unique, one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry where you say, if you could see that, a person's fingerprint is CNC'd onto a keepsake. Again, this I'm going to flip this camera around here. And wow, technology, awesome. So Leanne's on the phone now, which is totally fine. When you think about cremation, a lot of people say, what about urns? Do you have to have an urn? I love telling people that urns are optional. Unlike burial, say a burial vault that your casket goes in, that's for the most part not optional. Most cemeteries are going to say you must have a burial vault for future rigidity of the ground. But with cremation, urns are 100% optional. Same as the items we were just looking at over there. They're personal keepsakes. But urns are 100% optional. With the cremation process, and a question we get a lot about cremation is, what's the short version of what is cremation? Cremation is if you can imagine the process of 1,000 degrees Celsius for about 4 hours in an individual's body is in what's called a retort. And through that heating process over about a 4 hour period, a person's body is reduced to its most base elements. Those items that are left after the process, such as foreign bodies, such as metal from hip replacements and things like that, that's removed, and the bone fragments are then processed to a smaller consistency, and then that's what comes back to a family. The softer name is ashes. We call them ashes, but technically, if you really thought about what you're getting or what you're looking at, and if you've ever looked at cremated remains, you'd say that doesn't really look like ashes. It looks more like pulverized bone, and that's actually what it is. For some people that's kind of harsh, but that's just a reality there. But what we explain to many people, if you can see this urn here, this optional urn here. This is an urn made by a local artisan here. If you can imagine looking at this fine piece of furniture here. Inside this urn, it's designed to take the container that comes from. This is some great camera work, I'm sure. This container here, there we go. This container right here, this is what comes back from the crematorium that we engage. It's a hard black plastic box. And inside this would be a person's cremated remains would be put into a vinyl bag. Now, I've told many a family that that container, this black plastic container, gets called sometimes a shipping container or a temporary container. It is more than sufficient for storage, shipping, burial even. And when people say, well, I thought we needed an urn. No, urns are optional. Urns are a touchstone for people that are maybe having a memorial service and would like something a bit more ornate than the black plastic box, or perhaps their loved one's ashes are going to be at home on a mantle and they'd like to see something a bit more ornate. Very personal things, but that particular urn being locally made is, we're so happy to show that. And I'm going to flip this phone around here because my camera person's back. All right, there we go. See, we're just flying by the seat of our pants around here. The phone rings, Leanne gets it. I was just showing them the Don Kyle special. There's a man by the name of Don Kyle that builds these. Fantastic option here. Sometimes, if you see, there's different styles. This is another wooden urn. Whatever you'd say, maybe more elegant, more detailed, beautiful veneers here. Another wooden urn here, designed to be an urn that would house cremated remains, but also a place for keepsakes. Perhaps grandma or grandpa's medals could be kept in there, or their favorite baseball cards, or things like that. And below here would be a person's cremated remains would be below there. Urns tend to be made of either wood, some type of ceramic, or some type of metal. And if you see here, you've got different ceramic styles of the classic urn shape, the metal urn shape. This one has become kind of a favorite around here. One, because it's glowing, and it's only glowing because we put a light inside of it. But this urn is literally made 100% of rock salt. You think, like, what? Rock salt. It's designed to dissolve. It's designed for a family that would see value in making a smaller carbon footprint, I guess you'd say. And after this urn would be placed in water, we understand about 3 to 4 hours it will completely dissolve, or if it's in soil, 3 to 4 days or so. It will completely degrade, and 3 months? Okay. We are not sure what we're talking about, but it's a smaller amount of time that this will completely dissolve. So the cremated remains inside, that would not be in a bag, of course, would then completely dissolve and go back to the earth. This urn here, made of 100% gelatin. And I tell people gelatin, they say, well, why isn't it wiggling? Well, it's a hardened gelatin, almost like a gelatin capsule that we put our medicine in. The same thing; those dissolve when we take those. This also designed to have cremated remains placed inside. This could be placed in water or in soil, and you'd have the peace of mind to know that this urn will completely dissolve. The cremated remains will then just be mingled with nature. It makes me think of Carrie Fisher who recently passed away, Princess Leia, there was a photo, kind of a paparazzi secret photo taken at her graveside service, and her urn was made, probably of gelatin, but it was made to look like a giant Prozac capsule, which sounds like a joke, but that was her plan. It was just a large, giant capsule of Prozac, is what it looked like, meant to dissolve. The idea of the keepsake is not a new thing. Keepsakes come in every shape you can imagine, where a small quantity of ashes could be placed in almost anything. And not everyone wants the look of the classic urn on their shelf, like in the movies. What?
Show them what's inside the bear.
What's inside the bear? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good idea. This is bear. I've taken this bear with me many times to when I talk to grade school kids about funerals, and we talk about memories. And the side of this bear, we have a small little Velcro pocket, and inside of this guy, there's a locket that's attached. Inside the locket, you've got options to either place a photo or cremated remains. Some people have put some soil from a graveside in there, and there's a plate that seals over top of that. And then, of course, the owner of the bear would know that inside the bear is this locket. But to the naked eye, he's just a sweet little gun bear. He's really soft and really nice. And yeah, it's very personal. All of these things, as far as other keepsakes, where you can see that some urns, they come with little friends, little mini versions of the same urn, where some people would say, well, I don't want the whole urn, that mom's going to have that, but I would like a small memento and a quantity of cremated remains, more than jewelry will hold, but that type of thing. And it's just literally endless options. If you can think of it, it can be done. There was a picture of Prince's urn, but a week or two after he passed away, and his actual urn was a tiny replica of his home, which I can't remember, Paisley Park. And so literally anything you could think of as far as urns go are, what's that? I'll show the little ones. Yes. They, urns they're personal, but there's stock things, but then there's pretty creative versions of that. This is another keepsake here, fairly common one. Maybe you've seen this one, where in the back of this one there's a small cavity. Again, small quantity of cremated remains are put in there. Engraving, your options are fairly limited for this space here, but I've seen these that say Dad or Joe or Bob or initials or nothing. And it's the kind of thing that could sit on a shelf and not cause any alarm, and a person would know personally that this is a meaningful item for myself. The one last thing we wanted to mention, certainly with cremation being very much, I guess you'd say the norm, the more prevalent disposition choice, does not necessarily mean that people are not having funerals. Many people would have a full traditional funeral with an open casket visitation and a service and all of those items that you've seen at a traditional funeral, but that funeral would end not with a procession to the cemetery, it would end with a trip to the crematorium that usually people don't follow. But so cremation does not necessarily mean that people are having no service or scaled down services. It's really, cremation is just the option or the alternative to burial, really is what that is. We found in my career as a funeral director, I've helped Hindu families where cremation is the only option. Their belief worldview says that cremation and the complete consummation of a person's body, that is the only way that makes sense for them in their worldview. So cremation would be the only option, where other folks would have the exact opposite worldview. I've helped Jewish families and Muslim families that would be beside themselves, appalled that the body of their loved one would be consumed by flames, that they must be buried. So cremation is a very personal thing, very, very prevalent thing. There was an announcement recently came from the Vatican where the Vatican had made a newer cremation pronouncement. The Roman Catholic Church probably about 15 years ago had sort of give the official okay that for Roman Catholics cremation is okay, is allowed, and they would work the bugs out. But there was a pronouncement made just a few months ago saying that the Roman Catholic Church says that cremated remains must be placed and interred in consecrated ground, in a Catholic cemetery that's been blessed by a priest, as opposed to people using a mausoleum above ground, or taking ashes home, or scattering. They're saying, and if you're Roman Catholic, and that has a lot of meaning for you, well, obviously you would follow those directions. But other folks would say, well, no, we're going to just figure this out as we go. Scattering, as I mentioned, very, very common. The question we get here in this room all the time is, I heard it was illegal. There's very few specific laws about scattering cremated remains because, one, cremated remains are not, they pose no threat to the public safety. There's, after cremation, there's no viruses, there's no germs, there's not even DNA left. So certainly that material is about as sterile as you could get. And so certainly there's no problem with the public safety. Officially, for people to have peace of mind that what they're doing is never going to get them in trouble, every Canadian citizen has full legal rights and permission to scatter cremated remains on Crown land. So if you have Crown land that's meaningful to you, you can have the peace of mind to know that you're scattering, and you won't get a call from the RCMP complaining about your scattering and whatnot. Other people have said, well, Crown land has no meaning to us, but we've always been part of going to the lakeside at Lake Huron or Lake Erie or places like that. I know personally there's many people that, in using a lot of common sense and sensitivity, have gone to private places like that and scattered ashes, had small, meaningful services. Certainly they're not breaking any laws. They're using common sense, like I said, and they're doing something that's very meaningful. And that place still would remain a special place. Similar to a cemetery, burying one's ashes, burying this urn in your grave at your cemetery. Well, certainly, you've got a place to go back to. That grave is registered. Everything is accounted for. But still, people that scatter still have that place in general that they would go to and say, "This is where we scattered Grandma's ashes," or at the watering hole. But there's so many aspects to this. What this normally does is just generates more questions, which we love. We would like to be a resource. We'd like to be known as a place that answers questions. Even if you choose to never use our service or use our company, we would like you to know that we're here to answer questions, here to maybe set the record straight or correct a misunderstanding you've got. And we would just like to be a place that gives free knowledge and free direction. And I think we're going to call that a wrap. Yeah, because we've got some things to do here today. So thanks for watching, and check out our next video real soon. Have a great day.